So, and a lot of our Japanese teas actually do come from Shizuoka Prefecture. Very few of our Japanese teas come from elsewhere in Japan. So we are actually really lucky to have such high caliber of teas available to us. So I did want to talk a little bit about the history of tea in Japan. So Japan actually did not originally have tea. Tea is really only native to China and to India. So all things tea actually do come from China in the world, but it has been taken elsewhere and procured elsewhere after cultivating and exporting some of the knowledge that the Chinese have built upon. And that's what you see in Japan. So tea actually came to Japan in the late 800s, early 900s, when Buddhist monks traveled from China to Japan, bringing tea seeds and tea plants and the ready-to-make tea as well. And at that time, China was in what we call the Song era, so the Song dynasty of China. Their main mode of drinking tea in China was grinding tea down into a powder and then beating it with a bamboo brush and with very little water and beating it to a froth. And at that time, the tea in China was really more of a black tea, kind of, when they were doing this. So if you take a look at Song era, Song dynasty tea bowls, the Song dynasty tea bowls are generally very dark in color, because when you froth up black tea, it gets a white foam on top. That's because all tea has natural saponins in them. So all tea is going to get a nice creamy foamy when you do it really strong and shake it up, whisk it with a bamboo brush like they do in Japan. So in all actuality, the Japanese tea ceremony that you now see is a look back into the methods of preparation of tea in Song dynasty China. So in the cha no yu, the Japanese tea ceremony, you have a chasen, a bamboo brush or whisk. You also have a cha shaku. This is covered in plastic right now, but it is a bamboo little measuring scoop. Its origins are kind of reminiscent of traditional Chinese medicine and their measuring as well. Measuring of different herbs and whatnot, what have you. And then you also have a cha wan. A wan is a bowl, so this is a tea bowl. Cha is the word for tea. And actually, it's interesting because you can kind of see the tea trade routes based on language. So if you see countries, if languages use the word cha, chai, che for tea, then they originally obtained their teas through the tea horse trading road of China. If you use a T at the beginning of the word of tea, then you originally obtained your tea through what's now Hong Kong. So interestingly enough, that's kind of what we have. But anyway, going back to cha wan, cha shaku, cha sen, all of these are tools that the Japanese will use for making tea in the cha milieu. Now, in Song era China, they ground the tea down into a powder using what kind of looks like an ab roller and a little channel. So they put the tea in this little channel and then rolled over it with this ab roller kind of device. But later on, what they used to grind the tea turned into a granite granite grinding wheel, and it's textured so it channels the tea down into a reservoir, and that's how we get matcha nowadays. And actually, so when you have ceremonial grade matcha is done in extremely small batches. The reason for that is they're wanting less friction, so they don't want to heat the tea up and affect the color and taste of the tea by heating it up too much. What's more is the tea processing has even changed a little bit further than this. Now they're using air to mill the tea into an extremely fine micron size of powder. So quite interesting. My boss was allowed to go into the processing facilities, and they're basically hermetically sealed processing facilities that you have to get all of the dust blown off of you. And you have to wear PPE before walking in as well. Like he had to have a little mustache guard to going in. So it's so locked down, and they don't allow pictures. So he didn't bring back any pictures from his last trip of tea processing, which would have been really cool. But so there is a difference between the tea that is used for tea ceremonies and the tea that is used for matcha lattes and baking and adding to your smoothies, all of that. Tea ceremonies, a processing facility that processes ceremonial grade matcha maybe we'll do 50 pounds a day. If they're really pushing it, they might get up to 75 pounds a day. However, they're doing this in kilos, so it's very small batches, like half-kilo batches. But a processing facility used to create culinary grade matcha may do 500 to 1,000 pounds a day. So there's quite a big difference in producing culinary grade matcha. Often you have the main varietal of tea plants in Japan, which is the Yabakita varietal. However, the Gyoku varietal is primarily used for producing ceremonial grade matcha. There is a lot of matcha that is sold here in the States that is not actually matcha. In fact, the majority of the matcha that's sold in the US is not matcha. It's generally powdered green tea from somewhere else in the world, and does not have all of the health benefits that you get from matcha. It also will tend to look a little gray, taste a little dusty, it just won't have that nice, bold, grassy taste that you should identify with matcha. Ceremonial grade matcha is still nice and grassy. Probably, if you're getting a really, really good ceremonial grade matcha, it may not be as bold. It may be a lot smoother, a little more understated, but still have these amazing umami, savory notes to it. Some of them have some sweetness. So there definitely is a difference in ceremonial grade matcha. Recently we do have a lot of influencers on the social media platforms that say, no, you should use ceremonial grade matcha for your matcha lattes. Don't do it. Just get real matcha. And if it is real culinary grade matcha, it is perfectly fine for your matcha latte. Do not ruin that ceremonial grade matcha. Please don't ruin ceremonial grade matcha with sugar and milk and all of that. It's kind of insulting to it. But anyway, so going back to Japan's history of making tea. So we talked a little bit about how when you look at the matcha ceremony, you're looking at the origins of when tea was imported into Japan. So that matcha ceremony went through many different iterations. The most famous person that is associated with kind of codifying the matcha tea ceremony is a monk by the name of Senno Rikyu. And so he kind of codified it so that you see that it's a lot simpler than before. There's a special tea hut that you walk into, and everybody is put on the same level. Everybody has to duck down to get into the tea hut. It's a sign of respect when you enter the tea hut. There may be something from nature in the tea hut along with the tea ceremony. Everybody sits quietly. You may have one artwork to meditate on as you are all on the same level. Everybody is sitting down on the tatami mats, and everybody is equal in the tea ceremony. And part of the reasons behind this is the monks used this tea ceremony essentially as a format to mediate between warring clans. So the monks were acting as mediators in arguments, using tea to get everybody to calm down. Now, what's important to the Japanese people and tea is really illustrated by the very first tea book that was written in Japanese. The very first book written in Japanese about tea, the title of it roughly translates to drinking tea for health or drinking tea for longer life. This is also illustrated by the shogun being cured by this monk by giving him tea. The shogun he overindulged and was cured miraculously by the monk giving him tea. AKA the dude had a hangover. So that kind of led into tea being seen as something healthy to do for yourself, and all of that. But my gosh, I can talk forever, and I only have a half hour because you guys also want to get all the way down to the matcha ceremony later. That takes a while to walk to too. I'll try and speed this along. Anyway, so there was a big cultural exchange of ideas and tea, ideas, language, calligraphy, pottery, so between Japan and China. But in the latter half of the 1300s, Japan went into isolation. So they shut down their borders. Nobody in, nobody out. So at that time, the Chinese had moved away from tea that was broken off in pieces and then ground down into a powder. They started drinking tea in loose leaf format. The reason for this is tea was actually destabilizing the emperor's currency. People were trading bricks of tea, bings of tea, in place of money, the emperor's currency, for goods and services. So the Emperor of China decided, oh, well, what we need to focus on for our tea is how beautiful it is. So we need to focus on full sensory engagement, and the appearance of the tea must be very important in this experience of drinking tea. So then in China you start to get into tea that has been rolled into balls, tea that has been pressed into what's called a bird's tongue shape, and tea that has even been curled up into little spirals. So that's what starts to happen in China. However, the Japanese miss out on some of this, and they are starting to figure out how to make tea for drinking in loose tea in a cultural vacuum. So they start creating their own methods of processing tea. Now, in making green tea, green tea was first and foremost pretty important in Japan because they are drinking tea for health and longer life. So they're focusing on preserving all of the vitamins and nutrients in the green tea. When you make green tea, you need to prevent the enzymes within the tea leaf from interacting with oxygen and oxidizing the tea. So if you cut open an apple and your kid says, I want to eat an apple. Okay, all right, here's half an apple. And then they let the other half sit and sit, or all of those little apple slices, they're sitting on a plate, all nice and neat for them, and then they turn red, and then your kid goes, I don't want to eat that. That apple has oxidized. The reddish bits on the surface of the apple slices is oxidation. The same thing happens with tea. The same thing happens in the fall when the trees drop their leaves. The colors of the leaves change. That is oxidation in the leaves. So that's what's happening when tea goes from being nice and beautiful, bright green, into this deep, earthy-looking black tea. So black tea, the oxidation process is encouraged. Green tea, we prevent the oxidation process. So what is done to prevent the oxidation process? That enzyme that interacts with oxygen is killed with heat. In China, what they do for that is they do a dry heat. They'll put it in a wok and do a dry heat. In Japan, they came up with a completely different way of doing this. They use steam to dehydrate the tea leaf. Steam dehydration is just like totally counterintuitive to me. Very wacky. But they're preserving all of the nutrients in the tea, and you get this amazing spinachy, vegetal, seaweedy, grassy tea in Japanese teas. And, okay, I've got a few more minutes. And so in Japan, let's go first and foremost. You see sencha. Everybody knows sencha, yes? Okay, so if you want to come and say hi over at my booth. I do have all of these teas available to taste. So come and taste teas with me. I'll probably bring out my ceremonial grade matcha after this too. So I don't drink the ceremonial grade matcha if I'm not drinking it with someone. So I need somebody to help me drink my ceremonial grade matcha. So come on over. I have over there Sencha Shinryoku. Sencha Shinryoku, now this one is from Shizuoka. It's this bold, deep, grassy tea with amazing savory quality to it. And this comes from Hanayama, Shizuoka. I like to brew this one a little lighter, so down at about 150, 160 degrees, whereas most green teas, you're steeping them at about 180. Boiling is 212 degrees. Now, the reason that you're not steeping them all the way at boiling is green teas are very high in catechins. The main one being epigallate catechin gallate, which there have been many studies on EGCG to show that it's beneficial for so many things. Cell apoptosis, which is natural cell death, we like that. And it can also help your antibiotics work better. There have been studies to show that that drinking green tea can help your antibiotics work better, even in cases of antibiotic resistant strains. Very cool. But while they're processing this sencha, they're taking the stems and the ribs of the tea plant out, and they are making this tea, green kukicha. Can everybody see that? It's kind of dark up there. But anyway, green kukicha, this is probably my favorite tea because it is lower in caffeine and higher in L-theanine amino acid. All teas have L-theanine amino acid. This one just has a little bit more of it. L-theanine amino acid, they've done studies to show that that it helps your body process cortisol. What is cortisol? Your stress hormone. So I love that. And this tea is just amazing. So it's nice and grassy. It's also got kind of a sweet hay quality to it. And the L-theanine, you can definitely taste, actually, because it occurs in kind of a roundness of flavor. So, and a complexity of flavor. This one's amazing. Now, also, what we have up there, we have a tea called Genmaicha. Now, Genmaicha has its origins in isolation era Japan because 80% of the population were rice farmers at the time. What did they have a lot of? Rice. What did they not get a lot of? Because it was really for the, like, grown in the monasteries and then accessible to the upper class? Tea. So all of these rice farmers wanted to extend what little tea they were able to get a hold of with what they had, and that was rice. So this Genmaicha has toasted and popped rice in it. So it has that nice, deep, like the bright, cool, grassy quality, counterbalanced with the cereally, dark yumminess of toasted rice, and it's just lovely. Also up there, I have this tea called hojicha. Now, hojicha is made from a late picking of tea. So sencha is essentially what we call a first flush. So sencha is picked in spring and early summer. Now this is made from bancha. Bancha is a late summer, early autumn picking. So the concentration of the caffeine in bancha is less than sencha in the first place. And then on top of that, this one has been roasted. It does not look like green tea, but it is green tea. It's just a roasted green tea. So that roasting process also breaks down the caffeine molecule even more. So this is incredibly low in caffeine. That roasting process also releases a compound called pyrazine. They've done studies to show that pyrazine is very beneficial for your heart health. So that one's pretty cool too. Lastly, I wanted to talk about gyokuro. Gyokuro translates as jade dew. The cultivar used to grow gyokuro is also often used in the production of ceremonial grade matcha. But this tea is absolutely amazing. It is shade grown for 3 weeks prior to harvesting. And this one is harvested by hand as well. And it has this amazing buttery, umami, sweet, grassy taste to it, and it's amazing, and it's too nice for me to drink by myself, so come have some. But anyway, it looks like I'm out of time. I went over a little bit, so make sure you guys get down to the matcha ceremony, the tea ceremony that they're doing. I think they're doing that down in the Japanese garden, in the little hut there by the miniature Mount Fuji. So, yeah. But thank you.